someone's not quite in that too deep hole, the first thing that I will actually do is I will get them off of any tracking whatsoever, bro. Altogether, none of it whatsoever. And what I will actually do is I will get them to just strip back bare bones. And this is a process that I've actually introduced called the 3 Ps. What's going on, legend? Angus Beef here. Huge welcome back to the Anti-Diet TV channel, and welcome to the 3rd installment of the 4-part video series, being the Fuck Dieting video series, containing various parts of me having an in-depth conversation with one of my main awesome fellow health and fitness professionals, David Mifsud, who owns Body Shapers / Day One over in Sydney. If you're in that area, neck of the woods, and looking for an awesome gym, check him out. But in basically this series, what we've been doing is we've been uncovering a whole host of different cool things, ranging from well, like, hey, if you haven't seen episode 1 and 2, that's the first thing that you should do, is you should go and check in the past 2 videos of the channel and go check them out, because in this one, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering a whole heap of cool stuff over the time together. We're going to be touching on how to start out in your journey of overcoming binge eating. So if you come from a binge eating background and all you know is basically how to diet and then not being able to stick to one, then you binge. So it's like how to, well, early stages of recovering from that in terms of what I teach. My process around something called the 3 Ps, which is something that can be eye-opening for you to develop uniformity around food. Recognizing when you're actually hungry and how to regulate a natural flowing appetite in terms of hunger cues and that sort of thing. The importance of pleasure in your approach towards food, so that way you have a neutral, well-rounded relationship with food as a result that you can use to kick your goals. The dangers of quick fix-based dieting, and what to do following when you have blowouts, all right? So strap yourself in for some awesome flames of real talk and knowledge from your boy Angus Beef. Please make sure you watch till the end, and if you have any questions or comments around what we're covering in this one, feel free to light up the comments below, and I'll catch you at the end.
Most of us when we were younger, I remember one of the first times at the gym, she came in, I gave her some macros, and she was like, well, what do I eat? I'm like, just those, like, eat the macros. Like, yeah. What do you mean, what do I eat? Go have fun. And I think we've all been there where, and then we get the awareness like this as coaches, we're like, all right, there's more steps to this. And it's interesting hearing how much you're focusing on taking those small steps that help people build the foundations of protein, the plants, of everything else. And then you kind of, you earn that golden ticket to go and have the fun of playing with your macros how you like it. But I think the key there that I think it's important to take away is, like, you have these little steps you're taking and important things you want to fit in. Like you said, you're focusing on what's included at first, but still allowing the flexibility within that, where it's like, all right, we're going to include the protein, the plants, etc. And also here's a bit of the fun stuff that you like to have still built into that. And that's where the flexibility comes in, where it's like, I'm not restricted, but there still needs to be, like you said, some kind of, targets and inclusive stuff that you need to be doing. Because if you just have people go how they want without enough guidance, then they're probably not going to get too far, right? Yeah. So I think that's really a nice way to look at it. And then as you get better at this stuff, you get more flexibility because you can really pick and choose where you're going. But I think that's why having a structure helps. Like you said, at first having a bit of a plan really goes a long way. 100%. I think what would be super interesting to hear your perspective, Angus, is if someone comes to you and they do have, I don't want to use the word disordered eating, because I think that's a bit of a strong word, and it's also kind of ambiguous at times. But let's say someone is verbalized to you or shows signs where they struggle with not feeling guilty about eating certain foods. Maybe their entire adult life they've been told this food will make you gain weight. They've had the parents say, look, don't eat that, you'll get fat, or don't eat that, you'll gain weight. We've all heard those things said to us, and it ends up causing these relationships with food that can really play on your mind. Do you have a process or any advice for someone that, again, feels that way with food, and and sort of how you try to educate and work, I guess, I know this goes into a very deep category, and this whole psychologist developed, just to all this stuff, but you've got a pretty good perspective on it. How do you normally approach stuff like that?
So, like, if someone is in what I will technically say is like too deep in that hole, I know where my scope ends, and that's where I will refer them. Because, like, let's say for example someone is having like binges where they just feel in a complete state of like no control every single night and eating to the point of feeling physically sick and hating themselves, that's where they're probably going to need some psych help. So me, for example, remember how I said like after one of my comps, it was actually, I think it was like my first one, that was where it got so bad, bro. Like those binges that I just said there, that happened to me multiple times a week. So I was fearful that like, shit, like this is bad, what do I do? And then rather than getting psych, I went to a coach that was experiencing this stuff in the way that I am, and he helped me see the light. But it was interesting because his approach is different to what I do now. Like what I just told you that I do now, if someone's struggling and looking for ways to level up. With me, he actually gave me, here's your macros, bro. Eat whatever you want. And I was like, but bro, what do I eat? And he's like, whatever you want, just, yeah. And he was like, just whatever you want, man, just hit these numbers. And I was like, so like it took a little while to make sense. But then because I already had that decent discipline, I think that's where I was able to, right, okay, cool, he wants me to eat what I want, let's just fit this in. And then eventually I got good and I was like, fuck yeah, I can eat whatever I want, let's use this to compete again. And then I achieved a next level physique. But then in saying that, those binges were still there because it's like the work didn't properly get done. So I think if someone's not quite in that too deep hole, the first thing that I will actually do is I would get them off of any tracking whatsoever, bro, altogether. None of it whatsoever. And what I will actually do is I will get them to just strip back bare bones. And this is a process that I've actually introduced called the 3 Ps. So I don't actually get them to track anything. It's just that every time that they're, because like what I realized as well is that someone that has these binge eating issues, they typically also have no hunger cues. So in other words, they've forgotten how to tell when they're hungry. So it's like you can tell when you're good, where it's like if you need to pee, you go and pee, right? That's how it should feel like when it comes to recognizing that you're actually hungry. But because a lot of us, we force fast, we're stressed with our jobs, we've got all this shit going on, and we're so used to just like, nah, I'll eat later when I get time, eating's a chore, that we've forgotten how to tell when we're hungry. So what I actually do is I actually get them to scale back to, right, now what we're actually going to do is we're going to start to listen to when our body tells us how hungry, and you're going to, and like I give them examples of what the 3 Ps look like. So protein, plants, pleasure. And I will get them to look in that light as they go about making a food choice and send me a photo. And I ask them how they feel, things like that, so they can start to build awareness around, cool, how does this make me feel? What was I feeling while I was eating? How do I feel after? How long did that keep me nourished for? Or whatever, when did I eat? And start to sort of look at the patterns that are happening here. And once you start to give yourself permission to eat whatever you want, but in a zone like this, food starts to lose its novelty pretty quickly. Not in the way that it doesn't taste enjoyable anymore, but it's like our brain wants what we tell ourselves we can't have. So because I tell them right away, well, it's like you can eat whatever you want, let's just stick to these rough guidelines. So very, very rough. It's not even like weigh your food, let's get in, you know, a specific weight or whatever. It's just like bare bones to be able to create the space for the person then to be able to see that, hey, it's okay if I want to have some dessert before I go to bed. It's okay if I want to include some chocolate in this meal, or some fucking like peanut butter in my breakfast, or, you know, some nuts in my lunch, or just whatever it might be. So that way, once the novelty is gone, which doesn't take too long, and if the person has a trigger food that I know about, I actually tell them, okay, cool, when do you feel that you're going to enjoy it the most and be the most present? And I actually tell them to put that into that meal every night or every lunch until they don't want it anymore. Rinse and repeat with whatever else was a trigger food. And then that way, once I see enough positive data around this, we then start working into what I told you before, where it's like, right, let's start tracking in some way so that we can start to quantifiably measure what's happening. And then this is where it might be a good time to start seeing what's happening with their weight trends, you know, what's happening with measurements and whatever, and see how this starts to correlate to performance in the gym, improve self-love or whatever. I find it's a really good way to start things up. And then, but then make it very, very clear as well to not put pressure on becoming perfect with this stuff as quickly as possible, because it takes a bit of time, especially if you've come from a background of dieting for years. If you try to put that same paradigm onto this, it absolutely won't work. So someone needs to have patience on themselves and be forgiving, because you will still stuff up, you will still overeat in some of these scenarios. But it's like trusting that process and giving yourself permission to do it without guilt and without shame or anything like that, because you touched something that you used to think was bad or whatever. And take it from me, who used to fucking fear like rice, potatoes, any sort of bread. Like, I had all the food fears under the sun. Fast forward to now, like, I eat dessert every single night, bro. I go out for a burger once or twice a week. I fucking love donuts. Like, if any of your guys look at my feed and whatever, look at my content, it's like I love to just represent what this message stands for, because, well, if there's no pleasure in the mix, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Because there's not gonna be any happiness in living out the maintenance, let alone sticking to it long enough to achieve the goal.
Yeah, man, for sure. And we should pull up the photo of the big donut. Remember we were in LA, we got the big donut from Universal Studios. When you said donuts, I thought about that thing. Angus and I were on a business thing together where we met and went to Universal Studios in the US and found these big, like, Homer Simpson pink donuts. Still got a picture of Angus tucking in the line.
Just munging it.
They were good times. That's I love the 3 Ps, man. I think that's really cool. Just a really simple way to think about, like, what to put on the food, and it's almost like 3 Ps minus the 4th one, which is the pressure. Which what you said is like try to let that pressure just kind of to drop off, and you know, both of us know that sometimes that pressure is really strong with the food. But yeah, I love that, and I also love the focus on the coming back to your own satiety, your own internal cues that often we forget about, because, you know, we get the meal plan, or you follow this really strict thing, so you don't have to think about your hunger anymore, because it's 11 a.m. I've got to eat my chicken breast and 3 stalks of asparagus. All right, well, done. So I don't have to think about the food, and there's something that you lose. I like actually the go on the toilet. You know, you don't have to think about it. You go to the toilet, you get the urge, you go. Whereas food, we get a bit. With food, it's like someone brings the toilet to us, and we're like, oh, I do need to go. Oh, I guess so. And then all of a sudden you're going and things like that. So yeah, really good framework. And it's not easy. And I think, like, you talk about flexible dieting, being flexible with that. Like you said, if someone was to be trying that and then they do overeat or they do fall off, it's like being flexible with that in a way, where just because you had one night where you work on Monday to Friday, and on Saturday you just overate a little bit. Like, you didn't just stuff up the whole week. You just overate a little bit on Saturday night. It's cool. You're still on your plan. You just went over by like 10%. So it's Sunday, like, back on track, and off you go on things. So,
but just adding on that while I remember, because, like, the way that I want someone to look at it is, like, when you're trying to create fat loss in any sort of way, shape or form, there's going to be an element of restraint needed, because you're obviously not just eating copious amounts of everything like you would if you just didn't give a shit. So it's like there's that element of flexible restraint, but then to be able to cater for what you just said there, where it's like where those scenarios happen and whatever, what's really cool is that as someone gets good, they can utilize elements like calorie cycling, or refeeds, or a few other things to be able to, rather than just say, for example, hit the same intake every single day across the week, move days around, so that way they might have 2 low days, 3 moderate days, and 2 fucking high days, if their site can handle going back to a low day following from a high day or whatever. Or in refeeds as well, to look after leptin and stuff like that, because as someone gets leaner, hormones obviously start to become a bit interesting, especially ghrelin and stuff, to, you know, the body's trying to regulate the appetite to get you to get off of what you're doing. So it's like, yeah, it's really cool when it caters for that aspect. But if someone's new to the game, it's imperative that they know that if you blow your calories for one day, the worst thing you can possibly do is the following day, right, I'm gonna eat nothing, I'm gonna punish myself with exercise, and like just be in that frame of, I fucked up, now it's time to undo my efforts. That's the worst thing you can do. All you need to do is just get straight back into normal, like, targets, and just keep up, learn from your mistake, plan for it next time in terms of how you can maybe cater for it better. Or if you got a coach, bring it up, and then obviously a coach takes note of, those sort of patterns, or what something happened in their environment that aggravated it or brought it about, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a big one, man. I know a lot of people find that. I even still at times, like, hear that, and your knee-jerk reaction of that one day blowout is like, well, I'll punish myself. You said I'll balance it out. I'll eat nothing. I'll go for a 6-hour walk, and it just leads to that cycle continuing and stuff. It is a tricky one. And I'm trying to stay flexible with those small increases. I got one more question for you, Gus. I got one comment here. I'm just trying to make sure I got it right. Viola, just with us, you mentioned. She said, I've worked with nutritionists and always had a calorie deficit plan in place to lose weight. Yeah, that's perfect, Viola. No, I hope you didn't misconstrue anything we've said, that it's like calorie deficit is still the principle behind losing weight, and still something that, you know, we all agree on and is necessary. I think what the approach Angus was discussing is almost a way to get yourself to the deficit in a very nice, structured, easy way versus just like stop eating all your calories. And again, having the foundations of you know, eating the right foods, you know, nut drops.
Holy shit, wasn't that cool? I really hope you got some value from this installment of the series. Obviously, this is part 3. Please make sure that you check out part 1 and 2. And obviously, we've got part 4 coming in hot real soon, so strap yourself in for that. But yeah, seriously fam, I really hope you got some value from all this stuff that me and David were talking about. This is stuff that's right from the heart, because if you weren't aware, if you checked out installment 1, you would know that I'm someone that comes from a background of binge eating, yo-yo dieting and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what, like, once you can set yourself free from sort of like the mental ball and chain that is being attached to food labels and seeing it as good and bad, and just basically letting go of dieting, like, it all just becomes so smooth flowing. It feels so much more easier, and you'll find that you're in so much more control to be able to nourish your body, look after it well, and to be able to control how you look and feel longer term regardless of age. So please, if you got some value from this video, give it a like, share it with someone who you think could benefit from watching it. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hang around, check out some of the other videos in, of course, the channel. If you're keen for some anti-diet apparel, feel free to check out in the links in the description. You will see that I own a store called Fuck Dieting Apparel. Very unique, very awesome designs made by me. And if you're keen to follow me on social media, check out some of my links below. You can check me out on the gram, on good old Facebook, all that sort of wonderful stuff. And for coaching inquiries, there's a link below as well if you're keen to check out my anti-diet coaching methods. But I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I'll catch you in installment 4 next time, fam.